We have with us Professor Olga Lafazani, professor at University of Thessaly, Volos, Greece. She is in the Department of Archaeology, History, and Social Anthropology. And not only that, she is not a merely academician, she is also a very active in social work. And so this activist role is also important in the context of this migrant movement in Greece. So here we will discuss about the migrant situation there and how the people there at the ground level they are fighting and resisting the states attempt to put barriers before the migrants. So welcome, Olga,
Thank you very much.
and could you please give us some outline of this famous City Plaza movement?
Well, somehow the idea of City Plaza was born in this period, let's say, of the refugee crisis in the summer of 2015. And actually, we had a very long discussions about creating a large-scale squat for housing refugees. However, we really decided it after the EU-Turkey deal was signed on 18th of March of 2016, sorry. And it was a period that the borders that were kind of opened by the movement of the people were definitely closed. And in Greece, there were more than 60,000 trapped in the mainland, while another 10 to 15,000 were in the Aegean Islands, that they had become like a double border between Greece and Turkey. And in this sense, it was a period that the need of housing was really immense. The state policies were all about creating camps far away of the city center where people live deprived of dignified conditions. They were living in tents, in humiliating conditions. And at the same time, there were thousands of people homeless in the streets of Athens. And at this point, we really decided it was four groups of the radical left in Athens that took the initiative to squat. And after a month of very intensive preparations, assemblies of 5 hours per day, on 22 of April, we squatted City Plaza. City Plaza was an 8-floor hotel with 126 rooms that was closed for 7 years before we squatted it. So it was the beginning of a very interesting and difficult project. The first days we didn't have water, we didn't have electricity, so we had to face really serious issues. But gradually we managed to create a community of resistance, a community of struggle. We lived together in this building for more than 3 years, and it was for us, from the solidarity groups, it was a huge experience.
Okay, just a minute. Who are the people, who are the migrants who came to stay and live in the City Plaza? Who are the migrants? Which country they come from?
In the very first day, it was 120 people with us that we did the squat, and it was people. The first day, I think it was people from Syria, from Kurdistan, from Afghanistan, from Iran, and Pakistan. And then gradually, because City Plaza never put a barrier in terms of nationality, in terms of legal status, so everyone was welcome, people with or without papers, people having a legal status or not, refugees. So the, let's say an overall idea was that every period around 11 to 12 different nationalities lived in City Plaza. Also, a lot of international people from many different countries of the world. We had solidarity people from China coming, from Canada, from Latin America, and of course the European countries. So it was a huge, say, bubble tower with
Yeah.
more or less, I don't know, 15, 20 different nationalities living together under the same roof.
After your movement, was the government forced to give some sort of recognition to these migrants? Did your movement could change? Could it change the status of the migrants?
I don't know. I think the most important contribution it was that in a way camps or detention are all the more seem like the common sense solution to house migrants and refugees. So they say it's an emergency, it's a crisis, there is no alternative. They have to be housed in camps. And I think our initiative broke, in a way, this ideological assumption that the only way, the common sense way, is the camp. So we proved that if the antagonistic movement can do it and can run one of the best housing spaces in the center of the city, housing 350 people without any institutional funding, without any workers, just volunteer support and work, and without any specialists, then the fact that the state or the big NGOs are not doing it is a political choice. It's not that it cannot happen. It's not that it will bring problems to the neighborhood. It's not that it will bring problems among the people. It's just a political choice.
Since there are more than 40,000 people in Greece alone, and also in the Aegean Islands, there are more around 15 to 20,000 people. In Athens, we have done this, but what about the rest of the country? Were there similar movements elsewhere?
Well, there are a lot of initiatives, similar initiatives within Greece, and they used to, in a way, flourish in the grounds of the refugee crisis. However, the new government elected in this summer is a really right wing government, and it has evicted more than 10 refugee squads by now. And also, these days that we are talking, they have given, let's say, a letter, an open letter, towards all the squatted spaces to tell them you have to leave it by the 6th of December.
That was a new led government.
Yes, the new government now,
They have issued
the right.
warning that they will have to leave by 6th of
Yes.
November.
So they have made an open letter to all the squads
Hmm.
saying by 6th of December, like
6th December.
in 10 days, you have to leave all the squatted places, otherwise we will come for you. And now there is like a lot of movement in Greece. I'm watching it from here, but there is a lot of, and there are some letters in response made by squads that say we are not the illegal ones. Your policies are illegal. The fact that you have the camps is illegal. The fact that you don't respect human beings is illegal. The fact that you no. So they're trying to turn around this kind of discourse.
So the struggle is going on.
Yeah.
And what about the response of the common Greece people, common people in the Greece? What was the response to this movement?
Well, you know, I think in the case of City Plaza, there was a split, let's say, among the people in Greece. So obviously, okay, there are the people who are one way or another very conservative, and they say we don't want the refugees in the country. They are right-wing people, and they say they will destroy our civilization or whatever. And then among the more progressive people, they were people who fully supported it, and this support was obvious in the everyday life of Plaza, like hundreds of people passing by just to sit around, to have a tea, to bring something like old clothes or food or donations. At the same time, however, it was for us really interesting that the fact that the squat was made in private property
Yes,
had also an impact on the progressive people. So some of the progressive people that we wouldn't expect to, they said, okay, but squatting private
Free.
yeah. So why is it wrong to squat this kind of property for social purposes? Why is it wrong to? Why should such a building be empty and vacant and not used and not be used to house 400 people who are in dire need of accommodation?
So there, the struggle for the migrants also is embedded with a high sense of morality and ethicality.
Of course. And we were also thinking about that if, for example, the workers of the hotel had squatted the hotel to run it as a hotel, the same people probably wouldn't have reacted. So I think it's like the combination that you squat not for the locals,
Right.
that you squat for. So I think it has an underground of racism and xenophobic
Yeah.
discourse that you don't want to express it like that. So you find another
Way of
code
explaining.
way to
Right.
express it.
Was that the reason that from 2015, the economic recession and other crises, for that the people in Greece were hostile to this movement, or was this hostility present even in before that towards the migrants?
I think the hostility in Greece has taken different phases, and from the point that I see it, it's very, very much initiated also by the governments and the media. So, for example, the period around, let's say, the Olympic Games, 2000 to 2006 7, the Olympic Games were in
Yes.
2004. Because there was a huge development, economic
Yes,
development,
construction and
growth,
all this.
construction, there was a lot of need of migrant labor. No one was saying anything about the migrants. The migrants were not an issue.
Okay.
And a few reportages were like presenting this exotic side of the migrant. And we are in the center of Athens and we can taste food from all over the world or buy things or hear music from I don't know where. So there was this period that exotization of migrants was more into place. However, when the economic crisis started being
Yes.
felt in Greece after 2008, then it was a period of very, very harsh anti migration feelings, a lot of racism, and also the government were actually working on that a lot because they were feeling they were losing their power in a way because of these economic policies. So they were changing the agenda into fear and security issues, and you know, so they would have a way to. So in a way, migrants became the scapegoats of the economic crisis. Like the ministers would go out and say at this point of time, they are a bomb in the foundations of the Greek society. They are very bad for the economy, for the public order, for the health, for the education system. Like the bad thing was not their policies, their
Yes.
economic policies, it was the migrants to blame.
We have seen the resonance of that in our country also, where all the problems of our own, we put the blame on the shoulders of these migrants, and we call them illegal immigrants. Anyway, what I am trying to ask you about this, you mentioned earlier that your contribution, your movement's contribution to this society was that you can put up some alternative to this migrant crisis. Do you think that it is having some impact on the government policies?
Not really.
Okay.
In a way, I think the government policies are played out in a different way. Like the decision to create these hierarchies among the people in a society, to create always differentiations, distinctions, to work on racism. I don't think it's like an accident. It's a political decision. Racism is not just hatred. It's not just an ideology. It's an economic policy. It's a very like Because if you create all these different legal statuses and all these differentiations, then you have a working population that it's very divided.
Right.
So instead of having an antithesis to the government, you have antagonism between the oppressed.
Yeah. So you have a large community of migrants in Greece. How they are after this movement is over for the time being, and you are still struggling to find some solution to that. How the migrants in general they are fending off this crisis they are facing now? Have they been put into some detention center or they are just in the streets?
You mean the migrants who lived in Plaza?
No, in
In
general in the
general.
Greece.
In general, people are trying to survive. So some of them live in the camps. Some of them try to find precarious work in order to be able to rent something small. Also, the rents in Athens are skyrocketing due to tourism and
Yes,
Airbnb. So half of the apartments now are Airbnbs. So it's like
yes,
to say the good foreigners, the rich ones, meaning
right.
from I don't know global north, are very welcome and can stay in our houses if they pay for it. The bad strangers, the bad foreigners, have to go in the camps. So it's
Those
this.
camps are state managed or state run camps? Those camps.
It's they are run from the state, but also from NGOs. Like it's like partnership. UNHCR
In Asia.
has for sure a general overview of this.
So, have you seen any response coming from the neighboring countries to your cause?
Yeah, there has been a huge solidarity.
Which are the countries
Mm.
that showed solidarity?
Yeah,
Which is
not I mean the
the country,
countries,
but the people from that
but
those countries.
people and other solidarity groups, like for example for Plaza, but also for the general situation. People from Germany, from Switzerland, from France, from Italy, they have supported very much the campaign, the donation campaign, which was very important because
Yes,
in
yes.
Greece it was really difficult due to the economic crisis to find the funds to.
Mm.
And Plaza had that 126 rooms just to change the lamps when they were broken.
Mm.
It's like, and also in a way, in the logic of Plaza was to say that even people who don't have €1 in their pocket can live in dignified conditions. So apart from the room, there was every day 3 meals cooked in the big kitchen, so everyone could have food. There was they could take all the items of personal hygiene like shampoo, toilet paper, and also all the medication they needed for free. So this meant that the project, even if we tried a lot to manage with different
Yes.
ways, it had a very big cost.
So I'm just curious to know from you that how the decisions were taken in solidarity group while running that plaza. Was it democratically run? That decision making process was democratic, or it was just a few people were imposing their will on the others?
This was one of the most difficult
Mm.
topics because to in a way, Plaza was not like a political squad or a project that everyone came together because they agreed in certain principles. Plaza was an encounter of different languages, political, social background, uh, also dreams for the future, life plans. So people who came to live in Plaza, they came because they needed a safe house,
Yes.
not because they agreed with us in our
Mm.
anti-border or anti-racism or anti-capitalist ideas. So, in a way, this meeting it was really difficult and really interesting at the same time. So we had a house assembly once a week that everyone would show up.
Okay.
The translation was in 5 different
Yeah.
languages, which was crazy a little bit. And in a way, we really tried. However, it was not easy to make really all the decisions in a house assembly. then we had different small working groups, like the
Right.
kitchen, the security, the reception, the children's, the women group. So this worked a little bit better.
Right.
But still, it wasn't because people who have just arrived in a new space, in a new city, they don't know the language, they don't know how this society works. It was really difficult for them to say, okay, we will go to this demonstration, or we should choose this slogan against one another. But still, we really invented, ways to work together.
Yeah, it
And
was a very challenging job, of course. And you run your campaign through social media or through the mainstream media, you are also responding to your calls.
there were a lot of mainstream media that
Okay.
they wanted to see what is happening in City Plaza. Mainly not the Greek ones, mainly the European ones, because
Okay.
when the resistance is more exotic,
Yes.
is more celebrated. But when it's happening in your own city,
Yeah.
well, you
Then.
try not to talk a lot about
Yeah.
it. So it was like BBC, I don't know, like very big media, Al Jazeera, of course, and that they came to Plaza. Of course, we also try to filter a little bit because, you cannot give interviews for everyone. And at some point of time, there were so many artists, reporters, academics, who all wanted to do something about City Plaza, that the place would become like a zoo. That you would go out of your room, see one photograph, one camera, one microphone. So we try to limit it a little bit and say, okay, one or two reportages per week, or like, researches per week, but not to be like.
Uh, any last word, any message from this movement you want to leave with us?
I don't know. I think one of the most important things is in a way that projects like City Plaza, in our opinion, cannot be like an alternative to everything. They shouldn't be romanticized. They are projects happening in certain conditions, and they are also embedded in relations of power, of inequality, of racism. So it's not like an island of freedom and equality. It also has, like, it's a part of the society. And at the same time, I think the reason that makes it so important is that you can get glimpses and experiences and networks of a society that you would like to live in. So it's like having a struggle in the everyday life, from the most simple things like how we cook the food, how we serve the food, how we clean the stairs, to claiming rights from the government or protesting against EU policies, and trying to articulate all this together and to connect it. And this is very, very thought provoking, very interesting, and it can create uh, a huge example in a way, huge and a huge experience for all of us who have been there.
We have been hearing Professor Olga for the last 15 or 20 minutes, and she was kind enough to share her experience with us of putting up a fight for the migrants in her own country in Greece. For more than about 2.5 million back, Greece offered us a vast tome of knowledge in philosophy, history, literature, and in many other fields. Now again, Greece is ready to offer another kind of knowledge that you can really fight, put up fight, and unitedly you can put up fight against the state for the migrants. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you very much.